Once upon a time, in a room full of wonders, where every step leads to magic, and the journey of a true story begins here, with amazing guests and true miracles. Please like and subscribe for more amazing videos.
I'm happy to share with you my near-death experience. So, I used to enjoy building my own aircraft, my own airplanes, and flying them. And I like to build very old style airplanes from like World War I or 1920, 1930. And it was on the test flight of my second aircraft that I lost my engine. My engine just stopped. And I tried to get it started again, but it wouldn't start. And it was impossible for me to glide with no engine back to my airfield. So I had to look for an alternative place to land. And this was in the state of Connecticut. And it was very forested. There were a lot of trees, a lot of rocks, and a lot of hills. But luckily I saw a small lake at a Boy Scout camp nearby, so I aimed my aircraft for that. And when I came in, I almost made it to the lake, but I actually shot over the lake. And now I'm back in the forest with no engine, hitting all of these trees at about 70 miles an hour. And I broke all of my ribs. I ruptured both of my lungs. My right leg had many, many fractures. It was broken in many places. I had a hole in my lower back. It was tough. It was a bad crash. Luckily, there was a man fishing there. This was in October, by the way, of 2016, so 9 years ago. And at that period of the year, the Boy Scout camp was closed. So there was a man fishing there because it was very nice and peaceful and quiet, unless a plane is crashing. And he ran over to help me. And what he did is he kept me propped up so I wouldn't fall over, so that I could try and breathe, even though I didn't really have functioning lungs. It was more like gasping. And he called 911, and a medical helicopter was sent to pick me up. So it took me back up to Hartford, Connecticut, the capital, where there was a really great hospital and a trauma team who met me where the helicopter landed, and they took me in. And as my family and friends, they heard about it on the news, on the television news, that there was a crash, and they figured out it was me. So they came to the hospital, and the doctors told them that I needed to be put into a coma, a medically induced coma. So they did. And it's impossible to say, but my logic tells me that when they put me into a coma here, that's when my near-death experience began, okay? And they kept me in a coma for a week. I don't know how long in terms of Earth time my near-death experience was, but I don't remember anything else, so maybe it was the whole week. I don't know. And I at the time, I didn't know what a near-death experience was. I had heard of one. I knew what an out-of-body experience was, but I didn't know what the small differences were. But I knew I was out of my body. And I did not go through a tunnel. I did not see a beautiful landscape. It was more like I instantly transported to a huge dead city. If you imagine like New York City, 1,000 years after the asteroid hits or the nuclear bomb goes off, I mean, it's a totally dead and destroyed city. And I was high up on a building, like on a terrace, high up with a view of the entire city. Above me were the darkest clouds I'd ever seen. I mean, it was like the mother of all storms was getting ready to open up. But I wasn't afraid. I was just observing. I was just watching. And The only thing really of interest to look at was to my left, also up high on the building with me, and it was like an egg. And this egg was maybe 4 or 5 building stories high. And I walked over to it and I looked within, and suspended in the air were all of these special kind of gears that are designed to have a beginning, a middle, and an end to their motion. And it's not a gear I'd really ever seen before, but it made sense based on what I knew these gears did. As I looked at the gears, a video would play in my head of what that gear represented. And I realized I was seeing events in my future because I had a 17-year-old stepdaughter, and in this vision, I see her now as a mother with 2 children. Well, at this moment, she was only 17 years old and she didn't have children. So I realized I'm seeing events in my future. And then I thought, I noticed that some of the gears, they could just pass through each other. And it was like weird. It was like some were very definite. And some were more like ghost-like, and they would just pass through each other. And so I said, I'm curious, and I stuck my hand through this egg. Now, this egg was made out of like straps of metal. So it was very open. You could see through it. You could see through it to the other side, but the general shape was like an egg. So I put my hand through the opening, and a gear, one of these gears, brushed by my hand. And when it did, I felt a tremendous amount of pain. And with a reflex, I grabbed that gear, even though it hurt, and I took it out, threw the egg, and I threw it away. And when I did, all of the remaining gears representing events in my future spun around and around and around to recalibrate for the loss of one. And then I sort of spoke out loud saying, what is this thing? What's going on? And a voice came. There was no form to it. It's just this voice came and was with me for the rest of my time there. And it said, this is the process of becoming. This is the future birthing into the now. And I said, well, I was a little confused about what that meant. And it, helped me understand that I was standing inside the eternity of a single moment. And, we hear from quantum physics about things like this too, right? And I said, so what's going on here? What's going on with the gears? Why are some hurt? And it said, these are all choices in your future. And the ones that cause you pain are the choices that you could make that are bad choices. Not wrong choices, but bad choices. And think of it. All of us have been tempted to make a bad choice, right? We may say, if I make this bad choice, well, I'll pay for it later. I'll apologize for it later. Whatever. But, it might be to make more money, or to gain more power, or to get a better job, or reduce worry, or, it could be for all kinds of reasons we think that it's important. And so that gear that touched me, that caused pain, was some choice of one type or another in my future that would cause other people pain, and it would cause me pain. You hear about this when people talk about life reviews, where they're not looking at their future like I was, but they're looking at their past. And for every bad choice they've made in life up to that point, they feel the pain that they caused other people. And they feel it as if they are feeling the pain, right? And so think about it, works looking at the future as well. So I came to understand that I was being given the opportunity, like I had already done, to remove bad choices in my future, and therefore sort of like clean up my future, make for an easier future, make for an easier life, because I was, removing the rocks in the road, if you will. And I, the only guide I had was pain, right? It's not like I had a mantra, like, when you meditate, or a guru or Jesus to focus on. It was just pain. And later on, I've come to understand how, you might say, as a classroom, this was a perfectly designed classroom. The first thing is design the classroom, right? Design it so that it follows the theme of the lesson. Like if I was going to teach you how to garden or farm, it would be really nice if we did it in a barn with garden implements, and there's a garden right next to us. It kind of says everything about gardening. But in this case, where the lessons here were about don't make bad choices, make better choices, then what better place to have it than in a destroyed city, that city having been destroyed probably by a really bad choice that was made, like to push the nuclear bomb button, And so the classroom was perfect. And then next you need to prepare the student. And for me, that preparation was a total depersonalization of self. I wasn't afraid. I also wasn't attached to this world. I had no memory of coming from here. I had no thought of coming back here. I was just very present as a conscious being. So that means I had no desires. I had no fears. And now that's a perfect state to be presented choices that are best not made. Because think about it. If you look at a choice that's going to be a bad choice, but it is painted with the color of money, if it is painted with the color of power, the paint of influence, even if it's like, ooh, you could do so much good if you made this choice, even if it's really still not the right choice because of other choices you're going to make, then you would have a war within yourselves based on your desires. You say, well, I want to be rich, or I want to have power, or I want to have that job, I want to drive that fancy car, whatever, right? All these things that have to do with this world. But if you have been depersonalized so that you really don't want anything, then to be rich or poor, the difference means nothing. To be handsome or ugly, the difference means nothing. To be, as the world calls it, successful or not, that means nothing. But it does still leave the pain of making a bad choice. So that now becomes your guide. And the conversation becomes very short. So over and over, I just would search around in this egg, finding a gear that when I touched it, it caused me pain. And I would remove it. And then all the gears have to spin around again. But while I'm doing this, over and over and over and over again, I guess I was going to make a lot of bad choices. We kept having this conversation. And I said, again, talk to me more about where I'm at. And it said, well, you're in the in-between. And I said, the in-between what? And it said, in between everything, between life, death, future, past. And it said, and that's when it said, you're basically standing in the impossible now, the eternity of a single moment. And it said, it's impossible in its short duration. And it even asked me, do you remember the world to which your body belongs? And I said, I have no idea. And it said, then you see the truth in how the past is dust. And I said, well, why do some of these gears, make me sick and not others? And it said, well, all choices have unintended consequences. Some are unfortunate and some not. The pain each brings is your guide. And then I sort of made a flippant statement. I said, well, where are the gears that feel good? And it said, you're not here to feel good. Basically, you're here to work. You have an opportunity, and this is what it's all about. And in one case, I did see a gear of my daughter with her 2 children. And she was only 17. She was not even married at the time. But I saw her at an amusement park with her daughter, who I could tell was older than her son. I'm happy to report to you she's now pregnant. She's married. She's happy. She's pregnant. And this first child is going to be a girl. So give it a couple more years and the boy will be along. And then I have to go to an amusement park with them one day because that's what the vision was. And at one point I turned around and looked and saw a big pile of gears, the ones I was throwing away, it was a growing pile. And I said, wow, it looks like if I don't have a bad future, I have no future at all. Even though I feel less pain because I'm reducing the overall pain, am I going to die sooner from doing all this? And it said, your destiny has to fit itself around futures that are not meant to be. Your number of breaths are already counted. I will worry about your last one. And I said, I don't know how comforting that is. It said, well, eliminating bad choices doesn't mean you won't make wrong ones. You can make mistakes with a good heart. It happens, right? It said, you won't know they're wrong until after they pass. And since right and wrong are variables over which you have no control, the answers to what comes tomorrow are a waste. Better is understanding the beauty of how everything fits and refits together. I said, so what am I missing here in my lack of understanding? Because this was just such a big thing, right? And it said, what is clearly before you? Grace. No one deserves salvation. It can only be given by grace. It's your birthright, but it must be chosen at the expense of the world that separates us. I said, well, this fixing my future is painful, and I feel ashamed that I don't have some better moral compass than pain. I said, I don't even know where or when these futures happen. It said, where or when are not important, but to remove your enthusiasm to further chain yourself to the world isn't as painful as carrying the crushing weight of those chains once they are forged around you. And I thought, how perfectly designed this place was. And I said, it's as if this place was made so I can do one thing and one thing only, and there's absolutely no chance to screw it up. And I said, well, if those with poor choices, no, it said if those with choices make poor use of them, then offering fewer possibilities could be called mercy. You cannot change the past, but you can make better choices in the future. Everything is interconnected. And pay more attention to your relationships. Be gentle with everyone as I'm gentle with you. And I said, gentle? What's gentle about all this? It said, you prayed for something for which being here is the answer. And now the man who fell from the sky is not the same who flew into it. And with that, I was sent back and I arrived in my hospital room. And the strangest thing is, as I came to in the hospital room, I was full clear. I was totally clear. And I find it strange I didn't say, hey, where am I? What am I doing here? What happened? No, I just accepted I'm in a hospital and everything's fine. And I felt pretty good about it. And what's weird, though, is for that day and the next few days, the memory of this conversation, the memory of this near-death experience or threshold recalibration, really is what it was. It just kept going over and over and over and over in my mind. Like when I would pull out a gear and all the gears are spinning around, it was like that. This thing just kept going over and over. And as I did, there was more clarity each time. There was greater vision of it each time. There was a greater sense of its internal logic that I could just look deeply, deeply, deeply down into, and it remained consistent. And I just realized, not only is this thing just that big, this is the only thing. Okay, and I have a sense of it now. And so I was in the hospital for 7 weeks, and I came home around the 1st of December, and I just recuperated at home from there. And that's where, I'm online, I'm researching like what happened to me, and I didn't know really for sure what happened to me for a little while, but I finally realized I did have a near-death experience. I found IANS, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies, and found them to be a very good initial resource for maybe finding a counselor or understanding some of the challenges that I could expect to have, like marriages. Like, for example, in normal society, in the United States, we have a 53% divorce rate. That means the odds are greater than 2 to 1 that your marriage is going to fail. What's wrong with us, right? And with near-death experiencers, it's 78%. That's a 50% increase. That means with normal marriages, when you drive through your neighborhood, every other house is falling apart. That's bad. With NDE people, if you had an NDE neighborhood, every 3 out of 4 houses. I've spoken at conferences. I've written 2 books about my near-death experience. One was called The In-Between, A Trip of a Lifetime. And the other one was called The Practice in Between, The Art of Letting Go. Because a core truth that, I'm just going to say, God seemed to want me to embrace and stay on top of was that, said it like this. It said, all the force of will you will ever need is found in the art of letting go. Always live life in celebration of the individual spirit. For no one and no thing can stand before the brilliance of a truly naked soul. So live your life this way. And it's with that surrender, that abandon, the forgetting the need to control every single thing in your life and just let the magic happen. Let your heart be true and the path will unfold and you will go in the direction you're supposed to go. It's that easy. It's more about letting go than it is about doing something. And like in the Bible, when Jesus says, be still, or when God says, be still and know that I am God, the more correct translation from the Aramaic, the original language, was let go and know that I am God. And when we let go, we don't have the stress of having our history define who we are. We let go of our importance and we just rely on intuition and inspiration. And to inspire means to breathe life into, as God did Adam, as we get every day. So again, it's just about letting go, not being in control, not being bigger than you are, not being the smartest kid in the room, but perhaps the wisest adult. These are the ways we start to see differences. These are the hairs we split afterwards. And so the third book, from this, as I thought about, how can my experience help other people? We have enough lectures, we have enough books, we have enough workshops, we have enough, you pay me money and I talk to you for an hour. I said, what else can we do here? So I've been working on integration, which is how do you integrate this incredible experience into your normal life and become a better human being? Not necessarily a richer human being or more powerful human being, but just a better human being. Let wealth and power take care of itself, right? As a tool in which to be a better person. And so been working on that for a while and now working on resonance. And resonance is about vibration. We say that logic tells us what should be correct, and emotions tell us what should be important, but resonance tell you what is true. And so I'm about to bring out a book now that I think it's going to be one of 4 books about it, and it will be accompanied by sigils or designs that encode that truth for meditation. It will also have binaural tones in there that are representative of the particular truth, so that as you're reading that truth, you can listen to that tone. Or if I'm recording the audio for the audio book, that tone will play along with my words. So it's a match that way. Thank you. I enjoyed this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on today, and we wish you all the best.
And to you as well, and your listeners. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.